A little over a week ago on this show, Congressman Jen Clyburn had this message for Senator Joe Manchin about voting rights.
My advice to Senator Manchin will be, don't tell us what you are against. You already told us that. Now, put forth the kind of legislation that you would be for. You say you're for voting rights? Put the bill out there. You got a pretty good staff.
Well, it looks like Senator Manchin took that advice. After coming out against the For the People Act, Manchin released his own proposal for federal voting rights bill yesterday. It would give Democrats some of the things they wanted, like 15 days early voting and automatic voter registration, but it also gives into some Republican demands, like requiring voter ID, though with an expanded list of options. Still, the proposal was sufficient enough to get one big Democratic endorsement.
What Senator Manchin is putting forward are some basic building blocks that we need to ensure that democracy is accessible no matter your geography. And those provisions that he is setting forth are strong ones that will create a level playing field.
But folks, it seems like that thumbs up from Stacey Abrams was all it took to solidify GOP opposition to the Manchin proposal.
I actually think when Stacey Abrams immediately endorsed Senator Manchin's proposal, it became the Stacey Abrams substitute, not the Joe Manchin substitute.
There's now a debate among Democrats over a revised version produced by one of the Democrats yesterday, which has been endorsed by Stacey Abrams. Equally unacceptable, totally inappropriate. All Republicans, I think, will oppose that as well if that were to be surfaced on the floor.
16 Republicans were at that press conference, by the way, a clear show of force. And that reveals a larger truth about our GOP. Republicans have no incentive to support a federal voting bill, which means they won't. And with Joe Manchin opposed to abolishing the filibuster, this so-called compromise could be dead in the water. Joining me now is LaTosha Brown. She's the co-founder of the Black Voters Matter Fund. Welcome, LaTosha. It's such a pleasure having you. Let's just get right there. Did Stacey Abrams' endorsement kill this proposal?
You know, I don't know if I see it that way. I have a tremendous amount of respect for for Stacey. I've worked, I've wanted to get her, hope that she becomes our next governor of the state of Georgia. But this is a bill. The bill is appropriately named We the People Act. The bill is appropriately named the John Lewis Voter Advancement Act. I think what we have to know in the We the People Act is that this is really greater than any individual, any political party. This is really about democracy. And so what I do think that it's a good thing that people are moving forward. But I also believe organizations and people like me, we want to see For the People Act. We don't think that there's anything in there that's unreasonable. The fact of the matter is, people should not be voters, Black voters in particular, should not be punished. We're actually negotiating how much pain Black voters could absorb or tolerate in this election cycle when the thing that we did is that we showed up. We used our civil rights, and now it seems like they're punitive measures that are being negotiated because of the big lie. And so that's why fundamentally I have a problem with where we are when we're talking about For the People Act, which just a few days ago, in which Joe Manchin was saying that, he didn't support voting rights. And so I mean, compromise as well, but what I think that is really important, that we're not compromising democracy. If there's some other things that we need to compromise in the bill, that's fine, but I do believe that it's problematic.
No, I really take your point to heart, and it was obviously being facetious in my question, because it does bring up for me a lot of concerns how a lot of politicians on something so fundamental as voting rights are just doing this back and forth ping pong with it. And 1 minute they're for it and then they're against it, and they're having this mood and they're out of this mood. Mitch McConnell has said publicly, for example, that he's opposed to anything that would give the government more power to oversee state elections. Other congressional Republicans agree. Why do you think that is as well? I mean, so you finally get some movement, and then you're like, well, states' rights.
Because I think this has all been a show and tell. This has all been, let's talk about what's at stake. That fundamentally Republicans are putting something in place so that they can marginalize and undermine the democratic process. That it was targeted at Black voters. It was a punitive measure because people showed up and showed out in the last election cycle. And so for us to even be negotiating the problem that I have with the Manchin bill is that one of the things that we're talking about, just say the part in terms of voter ID. Now we're literally going to federalize and create and restrict voting rights. In some states, they don't require that. So why are Black voters having to negotiate because we showed up and literally used our civil rights? And so I think fundamentally what we should be having a discussion around is how can we strengthen democracy in this country, not how we restrict it. The Republicans have been using all of this as a political volley. They've been looking at voting rights. They've over-politicized it in a way that they've created it as partisanship, as if I don't have the right to pick what political party that I should vote for. It should not matter, right? Voting rights should not be a partisan issue. It is not a partisan issue. But what we've seen is bad actors in the Republican Party that are seeking, it is very strategic. It's been a concerted, consistent effort to undermine the voting power of communities of color, particularly Black voters.
So I take to heart what you're saying, Latasha, and so the question is, even if the Democrats adopt all of the Manchin proposals, Republicans aren't getting behind this. So it all goes back to the filibuster. Does this proposal, in your view, make you more hopeful that Joe Manchin could reconsider his position once the Republicans shut down his effort, or not?
Now, this proposal actually makes me more committed and resilient around more committed to why we really have to have a reform around voting rights in this country and why we really need a real democratic process. The truth of the matter is Joe Manchin has been wagging the tail of the dog the entire time. The bottom line is let's not forget, this is someone who said that they would not support voting rights. This is someone who has been staunch around supporting the filibuster when we know that the filibuster was created as a tool to prevent civil rights. And it has been throughout the years. And so fundamentally, what I think we're seeing a political volley. We're seeing political theater. When at the end of the day, what we're talking about is the expansion and the strengthening of democracy. That is where the conversation needs to take place. And so I am not convinced that Manchin is going to move away from the filibuster. There's nothing that he said or that he's done that makes me think that. Now, what I do feel that community pressure matters. And that is why we're doing a freedom ride for voting rights starting on tomorrow for the next week, where we're going all throughout the nation to 10 different cities, because I do believe that West Virginia is going to be important and key, and we're going to West Virginia. And I do believe that we have to really take what the Constitution says seriously. It does not say we the political party. It doesn't say we bipartisan support. It says we the people. And so I do believe there's a measure of power that when people stand up and that we are consistent and resilient around this, we will get the kind of change that we want to see.
So Stacey Abrams, yourself, you guys have been incredible advocates for the power of the vote, ramping up public support for the People Act, getting celebrities like Ariana Grande to urge their followers to call senators through her Hot Call Summer initiative, putting that kind of public pressure on. You just referenced the getting on the road, putting the boots on the grounds to really get up in politicians' faces about this. You think it's going to make a difference?
I absolutely think it's going to make a difference. I think, what I have learned, I am a Black woman that grew up in the Deep South. And so my history and the legacy of my community says that when people organize ourselves and when we are committed and we continue to organize, that pressure, things change. Georgia didn't just flip, from red to blue because people said, I don't think it's possible. There are many people that didn't think it was possible. But what we have to really recognize is that in order for us to have a stronger democracy, we're going to have deeper engagement by people to hold political parties accountable, to hold elected officials accountable, to even hold ourselves.
Well, I have to tell you, I cannot stress enough the last point that you made is that accountability piece that is going to be critical on this. 2020, folks, was just a warm-up. Latasha Brown can tell you that. And we thank you so much, Latasha, for taking a moment tonight to join us.
Hi, I'm Zerlina Maxwell. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more from Zerlina by clicking any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thanks for watching.